All right, Ann, I believe we're back.
Okay, it's 4:07. And so Luanne had made a correction or addition to the April 2nd, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Does anybody have a comment about that, or is there a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I'll motion to accept the minutes, including Luann's additions for the regular meeting for April 2nd.
Now I'll second.
Any further discussion? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Then the third would be the approval of Bluff Town Council's meeting with the Utah Government's Office of Economic Opportunity on April 3rd, 2024. Has everyone read those minutes, and are there any changes or corrections?
I motion to accept the minutes for the town council meeting with the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity on April 3rd.
I wasn't there, so I don't feel like I can.
I'll second it. Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain. There.
Anyone opposed? Okay, then Luanne, you abstained?
Correct, because I wasn't there.
All right. Then we had enough to vote, so there's a quorum on that. The minutes are approved. Then this is public comment. There will be a 3-minute time limit for any person wishing to make a public comment. If you exceed the 3-minute time limit, without permission, the meeting controller will mute you. Prior to the meeting, put your name in the chat box or raise the hand icon. I'm going to qualify tonight's public comment with one request, which is the council has received quite a bit of input on Fire Mesa Kitchen, and we're culling through everything and working on any policy changes for the community. But if you've already made a public comment in writing or orally, would you, unless there's something different that you want to say, not repeat it? We'd really like to move through this meeting tonight. We have a lot of work ahead of us the next couple of weeks. So thank you. And Erin, are there any public comments?
Yes, we've got one public comment in the room. Connor Toomey, 3 minutes for that. Thank you.
Amr Tomei, owner of Desert Rose. I would like to bring to the attention of the council a concern that I have regarding the way planning and zoning is getting input from the community. It just seems like anytime we fire up a piece of equipment, we have a parade of vehicles coming over to check out what's going on. Now, I don't have an issue with your, curious George that wants to see what's going on and they check it out, that's fine. The concern that I have, and we've had people from the town manager to the town drunk, coming in, taking pictures, video, drone footage. Now, I realized that with the town manager, she probably got some phone calls, people complaining, so she was out there following up, doing her job. But it just seems like what planning and zoning is fostering is a community of, I'm gonna say, snitches. And I hate for that to happen. We've seen this same thing happen with Dark Skies, where it's basically vigilante enforcement. I think instead of trying to catch people doing something wrong, I think we need to catch them doing something right. I think we need to catch people like Jared at the dwellings, edify him and thank him for being the biggest employer in town. Twin Rocks for doing Thanksgiving dinner year in and year out for the community and for anybody that's traveling through. The EMTs, the fire department. I mean, we need to edify people and thank them for the things that they do. Even Desert Rose, we planted 40 trees last year. We just got on the list for the 10 romantic getaways in Utah. On the list are, you know, hotels like the Grand America, Waldorf Astoria, things like that. So I would like the community to really start to help each other out instead of foster this, you know, we're watching out and we're going to turn you in, and that's the thing that I really don't want to see in the community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chinay. Erin, is there another one?
I don't have anyone else here in person, but we do have an online comment from Mr. Malloy. Mr. Malloy, you can unmute.
Yes. Hello? You there?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, I just quickly, on either end of town, there are signs on the highway that say that engine brakes are restricted. I emailed the sheriff wondering why that restriction was never enforced by the sheriff's department. He informed me that it's not against the law to use engine brakes in town. And if I was interested in seeing engine brakes restricted, that I should ask the town council to look into having an ordinance prohibiting engine brakes consistent with those signs on either end of town. And as much as I have my residence right next to where those engine brakes are the loudest, I certainly understand that there is a problem with them, and I think other people in town do as well. So I just thought I'd use my soapbox for a minute to ask the city council to consider ordinances enforcing the engine brake restriction on consistent with those signs. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Malloy. Thank you. All right. If anyone else, Erin, that you're seeing?
I don't see any further comments at this time.
All right, then we'll move to number 1, which is report on planning and zoning meeting of April 3rd, 2024. I believe, Erin, that you attended that.
Yes, I did. So their main thing that they're working on right now is some application cleanup. So there are a number of forms and applications that planning and zoning utilizes to ensure that they are collecting the right information from the community for these specific permits. So they have assigned a few applications to every commissioner to kind of look through, make sure that the standardized information fields are there, and then there are some additional things. Just want to make sure that the forms are collecting the right information and also conveying that we do have fees associated with most of these permits as well, and some of those applications don't reflect that. So they're updating on that. They did not have, they very briefly went over the RV ordinance draft that they're working on. It sounds like they're going to allocate more time during their work session. They do have a work session this Friday from 10 till noon, and during that time they're also going to be talking about RVs and those applications. And outside of that, they didn't have any land use clearances, and I don't think there was much of anything else that was relevant to council at this time.
I don't have any questions. Does anyone else have a question?
I did listen to it in the joint meeting with council and county commission, or not county commission, but county planning and zoning is put off, because we had announced that last week we were gonna do that, but it's not scheduled yet.
All right, then we will move to number 2, the report on the meeting with the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity on April 3rd, 2024. Erin, can you give a summary of what we all heard and did?
Yes, so we met with representatives from the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, also called GO-EO, and that is the organization that we received one of the grants for the CCC building. So we were talking about economic opportunity in the region in general. We did get kind of a late start, unfortunately, and they had a very tight schedule. But there was representation from GOEO as well as CERTA, which is the Southeastern Association of Local Governments. Yeah, that whole thing. And so they just were here, let us know about some of the resources that we as a community might take advantage of. They also have resources that like small businesses would be able to take advantage of. We did a very brief walkthrough of the CCC building so they can get a little before and after once we finish construction. And then, overall, just we were passing along information about, some other areas in which we would like to focus on economic development, most of which was called out in the strategic plan. So I kind of prepared a slide deck for them that showed those areas that we've talked about as a community that where we'd like to see some economic development. So they have that slide deck. It was a good meeting, definitely very short. Hopefully the next time they're in town, we'll have a little bit more time on their agenda. Linda and Jen, other comments, thoughts?
My only other comment would be Natalie Randall, who's the new director of Utah Office of Tourism, was our economic development person for many years, or for a couple of years, was also at the meeting, and we just kind of really tried to stress how important partnerships with those government offices are for our community.
I think the only thing I would add is that we also stressed how the distance between Bluff and Salt Lake City or the Wasatch Front impacts us in terms of being able to get to meetings that are only in person or activities that are only held up in that area. I thought it was an excellent meeting, although, like Erin said, it was pretty short. Anyone else, Linda?
It was really helpful. I mean, a lot of these people we already know, and having them all together was great. And they kept telling us different things they could do in terms of resources that they would have for the town and for businesses.
Is there a plan that they have to communicate those resources outside of that meeting, or?
That's a good question. They did, it was interesting because they provided like a packet of information, which were like statistics for our region. Colette Cox is our community, or like our region representative. She does represent a very large region. It's a lot of counties. So she's really the one that a lot of that information will flow through, as well as the representatives from CERTA. And so a couple of the ones that kind of, we were talking about were like affordable housing and, a Main Street plan, although that, like, we got a plan for that before anything like that happens. And so if anything, it was more of like providing them, hey, this is kind of what we're looking at, and then Colette can kind of be our connection and will let us know if there were grant opportunities that would be applicable to the items that we were interested in.
Cool. Especially the small business ones. Okay, cool.
Definitely.
I think it's also
And-
important for small businesses to realize that I forget the name of the Blanding office, but there is an office in Blanding that's pretty dedicated specifically to helping small businesses in locating these grant opportunities and things like that, and they're really helpful. They won't reach out to you, you need to reach out to them, but that's a good, it's just another tool in the toolbox.
And I think it was pretty indicative of the enthusiasm that they have, or that Colette Cox has for this area, because she's the one that alerted Erin to the grant that we were able to get for $445,000. So I think we just need to keep the communication open and ask for things. That was pretty clear. If we ask, we might actually get it. All right, moving to number 3, update on Sunrise Engineering and work with Bluff Waterworks. This is more of just an informational follow-up. A few months ago, actually 6 months ago, at the Utah League of Cities and Towns, there was information about a mandate on gathering data on water if I remember correctly, water pipes, infrastructure. And Bluff Waterworks has apparently, they're going to put the application in. So that's good. I believe the deadline is October of 2024. So I received a note from Sunrise that Marks Powell had indicated he would be getting that in. And then the other piece is that tomorrow night, Bluff Waterworks meets at 7 o'clock in their monthly meeting, and Gary Lichtenstein is on the agenda, and he confirmed with me that he is going to present the outline of the strategic planning for Bluff Waterworks. So people, if you're interested in what Bluff Waterworks is going to be doing, it would be important to attend that meeting at 7 o'clock in the library building tomorrow, Wednesday. Any questions from the council on that? Then number 4, update on the environmental justice government grant. Erin?
All right, we are in the home stretch of getting this grant finalized. We did meet, Ann and I met with our project officer on Monday, and April indicated that our final work plan is just about that. It's almost finalized. She's gonna do one last pass through. But really all the documents are pretty much in at this point. There's one, budgeting document that essentially I just need to move our budget onto their format. And then besides that, we're pretty much done. So your approval last week, Utah Dene Bakea's approval last week, got that in. And then we also got kudos from our project officer. Our application, will be the first in her region for this particular grant to get approved. There is still a little bit of a holding period, but we were the first ones to get the work plan back over to her for this particular grant. So that's and they even, they were kind of joking. They said, this is a big grant. This is, for $1 million to go out. They're really excited, but we should be almost squared away. As a reminder, we do not get a bulk check for this. We get reimbursed, and so there's a whole payment processing system that Linda and the project manager would need to work on. I did release the hiring, the job description, and we are hiring for that project manager position. Applications are due on April 19th at 5 p.m. Interested parties should send a resume and cover letter to Ann at townofbluff.org. Again, that's due at 5 p.m. on next Friday. And so I guess I can roll the other updates into number 5, unless anyone had any questions about those items.
And I just think Erin, would you just say where that application information is posted to be able to look at it?
Yes, so it's actually posted on our homepage, www.townofbluff.org. I also have some flyers around town. It should have gone in the San Juan Record for this week and next week. And then I am going to get it out to one of the regional papers as well. So we kind of hit the 4 corners. And again, as we discussed, part-time project manager position, but definitely a much needed position. But yeah, it's on the Town of Bluff homepage.
Any questions from the council, or shall Erin move into number 5, report on design review team meeting today, April 9th?
Okay, so we met this morning, Jen, Ann, Melanie, Janet, and myself, talked about what we all just talked about. And then there were a couple additional items from our office. So now that those funds are kind of in sight, I would recommend that we go ahead and put together the bid packets for the quality assurance project plan. So that's the necessary document for EPA in order for us to encapsulate and really do work in the building because of those asbestos tiles. So it's just kind of a project plan to make sure that we know how to best work around those and then fully encapsulate them. So that needs to go out to a contractor, either a firm or an individual who can put together that document. QAPPs are actually pretty lengthy, and so we would not have the bandwidth within our organization to put together a document that would meet the needs of the EPA. So we'll put that out to bid, probably a pretty straightforward request. They do these all the time, and there are definitely folks in our area who would, or either in the state or within our area who could develop that for us. Estimated budget on that is $5,500, so small potatoes compared to the next one. So I also recommend that we put out the bid packet for the fire suppression system. We do have funds that need to be used within the next 3 months out of the cultural capital grant, probably about $30,000 that are set to expire at the end of June that are slated for that. And so this then jumps us into, official construction on the building. And so with that, if we can get a project manager hired, kind of concurrently with putting this project out to bid, we would probably be in good shape to get some bids back and hopefully be able to award a contract within a month or two. So pretty detailed process once we start rolling into that. But Melanie and I are going to start putting together the packet details, and then both of those bid packets would come to council and to UDB just to approve before we go out. It'll be the formal process. For the fire suppression system, it will be a full sealed bid process, competitive bid process. Davis-Bacon wages, Buy America, Build America products, the whole 9 yards. So the good news is we're gonna get one of the hard ones right off the bat, and we'll push through. But we've got all the funding lined up for that project, and it's time to roll on that. So that's what we talked about those were the big ones that we talked about during DRC today. And Jen, anything else? UDB seems very happy with how things are going. We got some additional, commitment, and it seems like the board members are also happy with our direction, so.
We also did talk about wanting to have another joint UDB-TOB meeting to just kind of make sure everybody's caught up on board and where to go next.
I think that Dr. Shi is doing a really good job of informing the board individually and as a group, because it very much feels like when I bumped into folks from the board on a one-on-one, they're much more informed about what's going on with the building and with the grant. So I feel extremely optimistic and excited. It'll be fun. And I think that it's good that we're starting with a hard one, because then maybe the rest will feel easier, Erin. I'm hoping.
Maybe. No, it will be a good exercise to know exactly how we manage these federal funds. And this one is unique in that this particular project, fire suppression, actually pulls from 4 or 5 different pots of money. So it'll probably be one of the most complicated ones that we do in terms of grant management. So we'll hit the ground running. I'm hoping to have a bid packet to you all. Well, no, probably not by next week. That would be very ambitious. Soon. We'd like to have this out soon. So, yeah. And if anyone has any experience in bid packets and wants to take a look, let me know. So.
Was there a time frame on when they'd like to meet with us? Did they mention just, okay.
On the joint meeting,
Hopefully
were you asking?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, hopefully we're not like Colette Cox and the other gang and have to schedule it very last minute, so.
I'm hoping at the very least, though, there can be some inter-council board dialogue regarding that project manager position. Depending on what applications we get in, it might be more lengthy or less lengthy. I don't know if it would require a full joint meeting, but at least some interface would probably be beneficial to ensure that everyone's on the same page regarding that person, as they're going to be the primary liaison between the two entities.
So probably looking at the end of April, the first part of May. Maybe end of April, it's more realistic. Okay, then moving to number 6, a discussion of the Bureau of Land Management's proposed revisions to the agency's utility scale solar energy programmatic environmental impact statement. The main reason this is on is that the BLM put out a map for environmental impact statement, talking about use of public lands, lands that are close proximity to transmission lines to be able to permit clean energy efficiency while getting public and tribal engagement. And the public comment period ends April, see if I can read my notes, April 18th. And so I'd like everyone to look over that and see if there's any public comment we need to make. The map is attached. Unfortunately, the map is very small and I haven't had time to ask someone to help me go in and look at the larger one, but it doesn't look as though the Bluff area is one of the planned areas. There are quite a few, but they're trying to avoid archaeological areas. And so from what I could tell from the map that was in the information, it doesn't look like Bluff would be directly impacted. But if everyone could look at it and kind of confirm it, it would be helpful. And Britt, are you pretty familiar with how to go into those maps?
How to go into the maps?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on, what they've provided. They should have a better map than that available, though, if they're wanting comment. But I'll look into it.
If you could, that would be helpful. I am not a very good map locator, and even when I can find the map, I'm terrible at reading it. But if you could confirm what the general opinion has been, is that we're not impacted. Maybe we could get together and do that when you have some time.
Will do.
Any questions or thoughts from anyone on that? And then the next one, which is number 7, is pretty much the same type of situation. Just asking for a little bit of input and some help on this. There's a discussion of Housing Assistance Council's grants with the United States Department of Agriculture for technical assistance. So I'm not quite sure what this means. The email came to me last week. But Christy Hoffman from Housing Assistance Council is a technical assistance consultant. This is covered at no cost to the town. And the resource is to provide technical assistance for community facility projects. So I think this came from Michelle Weaver at the USDA. She's the director in Utah. And I thought it was probably something, it's something we should follow up on, particularly since it's technical assistance for community facility projects. Is there anyone on the council that wants to take this on or help with it and get the information from Christine Hoffman?
I've looked at the link that Erin sent us briefly. I haven't really taken a deep dive into it, but that's something that I could try and help with some more.
I was curious.
That would be, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, that she mentioned in here work on the old school, so, and what I read through their site is it looks like they do community development and housing. So I wondered if there was something that they thought was maybe applicable to our project there.
Well, that's what I'm hoping. I know that CERTA, Southeastern, whatever they're calling, whatever SULAG is calling themselves now. It's just as confusing, either one of those acronyms. But they do have a technical grant writer that we can utilize. But I think this is more, it's a broader base, I think, to check out. And since it is something that's funded, wouldn't be of any cost to us if there's anything we could use this person or resources for, would certainly be helpful with all the work we're going to have in the CCC. Thanks, Jen. If you want to just stay in touch and we can figure out if it'll take 2 of us, or if you need help, then let me know. So we're moving through the agenda pretty quickly. In part, I tried to factor in all the other meetings we've had the last 2 weeks and try to keep this a little lighter tonight. But we are going to, especially in light of the fact that work sessions are going to be really important. So I'd like to set a date to get together to do a work session, wrap up hopefully the draft sign ordinance, talk about some possible changes to the scheduling of work sessions and meetings. And then, if needed, talking about the community center and Fire Mesa Kitchen contracts, but hopefully we can do that and wrap that up next week without having to include a lengthy work session. So I'll tell you what my thoughts are on the Bluff Town Council and work session schedulings. So we meet the first 3 Tuesdays of the month and then schedule a work session around it. In looking back at our January conversation and setting the days of the meetings and how we're going to manage the calendars, Luanne again raised the concept of doing, like taking those first 3 Tuesdays, doing a meeting, a work session, a meeting, and then knowing that we had that 4th Tuesday to fall back on if we needed to. And I think we should go back and talk about that at length. So I'm giving everyone a heads up that that's kind of what I'm wondering. We're going to need some longer, more detailed work sessions. And so in order for us not to just feel overwhelmed with meetings and then not having time to get the actual work done, I'm wondering if we should talk about, and this is just piggybacking what Lou has said multiple times, like doing a regular meeting the first Tuesday, which is almost always jammed because we've had a weaker session that's longer than an hour and a half, the second Tuesday, but no council meeting unless there's some burning need to vote on something. And then doing the third week as a Bluff Town Council meeting with knowing that we should hold the 4th one in case we need it. Not necessarily schedule it, but all of us know that something could get stuck in there. And then, of course, any other suggestions anybody makes, but that's kind of what I'm jumping off on Lou's former ideas that we didn't utilize. So that was a long explanation as to why this is on the agenda item. How do people look for the next couple of weeks for getting together for a work session? And what days of the week should I avoid if I throw out some dates?
Please avoid Friday.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think Tuesday is a lot for people that have to work to be gone for multiple meetings in the same day. So maybe Wednesdays. And on that second meeting that, when we talked about it before, I think what I had said was make that the work session meeting. So have a meeting, have a work session, and then have a third meeting, and then have other work sessions kind of in between. But we can talk about that later. But that was sort of my intent, or my idea from the earlier, is have one the second, but it would be a work session.
yeah, I thought I said that, but maybe I wasn't clear. It's been a long day.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I thought I was saying, but it's been a long day. So if we avoid Fridays and Tuesdays, that leaves us with Monday, and we've usually avoided Monday, I think, Lou, because Mondays aren't good for you, and maybe I'm remembering that wrong.
Mondays are okay, but they're always just Mondays. But it is the day before our meeting, so that might make sense.
So looking at April, we have the 16th and the 23rd, no, I'm sorry, the 15th and the 22nd that are Mondays. So what I'll do is send an email to everyone the next day with some dates and times in April, and then have you respond to Erin as to what works. Does that make sense?
Yep, I do have a medical thing on the 15th, so it would need to be before 2 o'clock, be done before 2 o'clock.
Okay.
And I think
Well, let's-
Thursdays are pretty good. How are you guys on Thursdays?
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible on any of those days, except for the 15th.
Yeah, but that's a Monday, so.
Yep.
I think, for me, it needs to be somewhat flexible because I spend time taking Nate to medical appointments, and I'm gonna have Lottie, school's gonna be out. So, it's easier for me if there's a little bit of flexibility. And then I think other people will be doing stuff in the summer anyway, so.
Yeah, and I think we're just talking about this one work session right now, Linda.
Oh,
to-
okay.
Yeah, yeah, I think we're just trying to get one on the calendar. Well, let me look through the calendar tomorrow and get something to everyone on Thursday, but I'd like to at least do a couple-hour work session in April so that we can get some of these things wrapped up in April. So if there's nothing else on that, we're to the other. Is there any other? Okay, hearing none, it is 6:44, well, 4:44, you can all tell I'm in a different zone, 4:44 PM.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Or do we just,
I'll second.
all in favor say aye, aye,
Aye.
aye. Anyone opposed? It's unanimous.